In today's lesson todakuita decantation. Saka decantation, the process itself can be called decanting. Satoda kudzidza pamusoro decanting. What is decanting? The process of separating what from what? Mixture yedu inenge yakamira sei? Are there types of decanting? The apparatus we use for decanting, etc. So the first thing we weigh ourselves with is the definition. So we have to know what decanting is before we discuss anything further. So when we talk about decanting, this is the process of separating two immixable liquids or a solid liquid mixture. So Banaba, we are defining decanting as per what we are separating from the other. So decanting, definitionally, it is the process of separating two immixable, this is a very important word, immixable liquids, and we are going to explain why they have to be immixable. Let us put an example of water and oil, a very famous example, or a solid liquid mixture. And also a practical example is going to be wine and grape seeds. Just also a lesson on applications. Kuti kuma winery, decanting is a very famous process like this. Saka tiri kuti by definition, and decanting is the process of separating two immixable liquids. And the reason why they have to be mixable in a way that we do not want a solution. We don't want a solution. Because tikatora ma liquids two are mixable, zvinogadzira solution. And we cannot use decanting to separate my liquids are mixable. A very practical example, masowe orange crush and water. Tika mixer water and masowe orange crush, these two are mixable. They form a solution we call a drink. Think of a salt and sugar solution. We take certain tablespoons of salt, certain tablespoons of sugar, mix with water, we have a solution. Saka we don't want a solution. We cannot separate a solution using decanting. That's the reason why the liquids have to be immixable. And famously, water and oil, they are immixable. Mukatora mvura ne oil, this is an experiment. Mukazvidira mukapu imwe chete. Kapu yacho kana iri transparent, kuroti munokwanisa kuona ma differences ema liquid. You can actually see oil iri pamusoro because it's less heavy, less dense, and then water iri pasasi because it's more dense, it's more heavy. So that is the part of immixable liquids. Then we can also separate a solid liquid mixture. Paya pataishandisa filtration, we can also use decanting. And a practical example would be wine and grape seeds. Even though we can say water and sand, separate water and sand using the process of decantation. So as we move further, let us now look at the types of decanting. Saka takuda kutarisa ma types of decanting. When we talk about the types of decanting, firstly, trikutarisa separating immixable liquids. This is the first type. So when we are separating immixable liquids, the physical property we are concerned with are the different densities of liquids. So the immixable liquids should have different densities. Saka in this statement tatotaura zvinhu 2. Chekutanga, ma liquids atiri kuda kuseparate and they should be immixable, kureva kuti they should not have the ability to form a solution. Then secondly, they should have different densities. Remember kuti density chi, it's mass over volume. Mushona uremu, and it kwete kuti kurema uremu, mapaona. So let us go to the second point, which is going to elaborate on this. And so separating immixable liquids depends on different densities of the liquids, and the liquids should not mix. Saka the liquids should not mix taitaura pachi pa immixable apo, kureva kuti immixable liquids zoreva kuti the liquids should not mix and kana kuti togona kuti that is not form a solution. That is what kuti immixable liquids, that is what it means. So now adding on to now yema different densities. For different densities tofanirwa kuziva kuti the lesser dense liquid and for example ye water and oil inenge iri chi oil, the lesser dense liquid, it floats on top of the heavier, more dense, kana kuti tokunangoti denser liquid. Saka ndozviri kuitika panapa, ma different densities. In a uremu ushoma, the lesser dense liquid, which is oil, is going to float on top of the heavier, the more denser liquid, which is in this case water. So let us bring an image here to illustrate what we are talking about. So that's an illustration of what we are talking about. Kungoti tiri mu shithole country, zvinhu zvinodhura unimaginably, saka mafuta anodhura. So maybe you might not be in a position to do this experiment, but mukatora mvura nemafuta, the way I want you to do this kuti munyatsokuona kuti zvinhu izvi zviri immixable, ndoda kuti mutange madira ari mafuta. Modira mafuta kaleya kanozobudawo kachioneka sezvakaitawo kaleya aka kamuri kuona kaleya kemafuta aka, handiri. Then modira mvura pamusoro muchigubhu, mozama kusheka as hard as you can, kuzama kuzvimixa, kuforsa kuti zvimixe, then mozvisiya zvosetla. Muchaona mafuta achisimuka achienda pamusoro, onoita kaleya kawo, mvura yosimuka yoyo hapana paita kaleya kayo, because oil is less denser than water. Mapaona. Saka do this experiment and you see. So because of this manje, it becomes easier kuti tibvise that layer of oil tichisiya the layer of water. Saka decanting yacho, the process of decanting, zvainozongoreva ndezvekuti for the process of decanting tenge tichiti the floating oil is poured out of the mixture. Saka don't worry, we are going to show you how kuti tinoita sei, because nzira dzacho imbiri. Pane nzira yekubuditsa oil yacho pungosara mvura, pane nzira zvakare yekubuditsa mvura muchingosara oil. Saka we are going to discuss that. Let us go to the second type. The second type tikutarisa separating the solid liquid mixture. Ndo yatiri kutarisa separating the solid liquid mixture. So when we are talking about separating the solid liquid mixture, tiri kuti the solid should be undissolved kana kuti insoluble, so that there won't be a solution. That's the first point. Solid yacho it should be undissolved. Saka apa makutora similarity ne filtration handi, or insoluble, so that there is no mixture. And it very important. Then secondly, the liquid is now poured out of the mixture, leaving the solid. So decanting, how do we do it? Trikuti, pour the liquid out, leaving the solid. And it's poured out of the mixture, leaving the solid. But in order for us to be able to pour manje, tirikuti, the mixture is slightly tilted, and we are going to discuss soon kuti pa slightly tilting the mixture zvinge zviitika at 45 degrees. So it's slightly tilted at 45 degrees, pouring out the liquid. And chakuratidza zvatiri kureva kana chiti 45 degrees and everything. Saka let us now look at methodology kana kuti procedure. Toda kuona kuti procedure yacho inombofamba sei. Saka pa the first type ye separating immixable liquids, and separating immixable liquids, zvirikuitika panapa ndezvekuti when we are separating immixable liquids, and we can pour out the low density liquid. Saka option 1 ndeyekuti we pour out the low density liquid, and pa example yatiri kuramba tichifamba nayo, this is oil. Kana kuti the second option ndeyekuti we use inonzi a separating kana kuti separatory funnel to drain the high density liquid. Saka this high density liquid, it's water. Water, like this. So those are the two options we want to look at, and when we are doing it like this. Saka patiri kutaura about option 1 of pouring out the low density liquid, ndo patataura kuti we are going to tilt, and tilt the beaker which is containing the mixture at 45 degrees. So let me just illustrate with 45 degrees tirikumborevei. So remember your mathematics, this is 90 degrees, tika bisector panapa, that will be 45 degrees. Saka we tilt our beaker in container mixture like this. So this is the beaker, we tilt it at what? At 45 degrees. But in our beaker we have oil. Saka let me use red for oil. Saka tine layer oil, and this is the oil layer. Then tozoita a water layer. Then of course we should be having what? Container ichazoholder the oil like this. Saka we are pouring out the oil, making sure kuti taita pour out the oil tinongosara tiine mvura. But as you can see kuti this cannot be as much efficient. Pamusana pekuti kuti uzive kuti apa ndakudira mvura kana kuti kudini, unogona discover kuti after madira munenge muine kamwe kuti ka fume kana kuti ka layer ke water kana tichida increase the accuracy of our experiment, ndo patino introduce this. Saka zviri kuitika apa ndezvekuti we have this separating funnel in a kerosene and water, because kerosene it's oil, kerosene oil ndiyo yatoti paraffin. It's going to float on top of water because it's less dense as compared to water. Saka panapa manje tiye takabata this stand, then apa pane ka stop cook kana ngoti just ka stopper. Panapa can just be called a stopper. Andite. Saka zvikuita nzoti munovhurira apa mvura yotanga kubuda mvura ichibuda. The moment yamunoona kuti mvura yapera mwamavhara, kureva kuti munome masara oil umu menge muine mvura. So these are the two methods which are used for separating. But when we talk about separating a solid liquid mixture, tinenge takutaura pamusoro peinonzi sedimentation. Saka sedimentation inobva pakudi separating a solid liquid mixture. Okay, that is where sedimentation comes in from. Saka here manje, what are we talking about? We are going to use gravity or what is called a centrifuge. And it Saka a centrifuge, I am leaving this as your research. You should research with chi centrifuge. So we use gravity or a centrifuge in sedimentation. Sedimentation amadzangu ainambosiyana nezvamakadzidza kugeography pamakadzidza pamusoro paavanoti sedimentary rocks. Actually sedimentary rocks anogadzirwa through this process of sedimentation, which takes use of gravity or a centrifuge, and you force, like amwe mabhuku anotoiti fake gravity, because you are forcing gravity through this process, cannot through this instrumentation of a centrifuge. So gravity or a centrifuge are used in sedimentation to separate mixture components according to density. So we use gravity or a centrifuge in sedimentation to do what? To separate mixture components due to gravity, due to density, different densities, due to different densities. So heavier particles are going to settle down. Kana chiti heavier, remember tikutaura high density. So heavier particles or high density particles settle down, and kana ma high density particles aita settle down, zvoroti the liquid part ndo inenge iri kumusoro. So when this happens, tirikuti the top layer is siphoned. Kubuditswako tichaita a siphon in physics, but you can actually, out of interest sake, you can just do a small research on it. Saka it's siphoned, poured out, or drained. So talking of this process, let us bring this small diagram to illustrate it. Saka ndo zviri kuitika pasedimentation panapa, zvekuti as you can see, ngatiti tachera mvura mutsime, handiti toziva kuti mutsime mogona kunge mune zvimatombo-tombo zvimachichichi handika, tinoregera mvura ichisetla handika. That's the process of sedimentation, kuregera mvura ichisetla kuitira kuti mavhu ari more dense aende pazasi, mvura yakanaka enda pamusoro. Like if you were around, is it around 2010 somewhere there, mvura yekanzuru marare payaitobuda iri yebrown. If you would take that water momboisa mpoto kana mukapu kana mubucket momboisiya yosetla, maitoona kuti pasi panoita kaleya kemavhu, pamusoro pova paita mvura iri clear. That's sedimentation. Then manje we tilt sekutaura kwatamboita it 45 degrees handika zvinonyatso kubuda diagram rangu panapa. Let me try to do this here. Yeah, tilt at 45 degrees. Munenge muchidira mvura ichiuya kunoku mosara muine mavhu. Saka zviri kuitika pano zvekuti mvura yamuri kudira ichienda uko iyo ishi inenge ichinzi decant ndositarayo, but mavhu anosara aya ndo anenge achinzi masediments. Very important. Remember patakaita filtration takataura pamusoro pechi the filtrate and the residue. Panapa takataura pamusoro pe the decant and the sediments. Zvinhu zvakakosha kuziva. So in the laboratory, the beaker containing the mixture is tilted at 45 degrees angle using a tilting rack. Saka kune inotonzi tilting rack. Instead of kushandisa maoko, you use a tilting rack. Then there's also an issue yekuti to aid the separation during sedimentation, placing the liquid behind a steering rod makes pouring it off simpler. Zvatiri kutaura ndeizvandi kuti munenge makabata steering rod like this handika kana kuti glass rod, then pamuri kudera liquid inenge ichipinda nepa glass rod ichidai so. Izvi zvinobatsira kuti kuseparata kwenyu kusiyane. Saka muri kuona kusiyana kwakaita these two processes. Uyu ari kushandisa glass rod kana kuti steering rod to aid the pouring of the liquid, tichisiya sediment munomu muinge muine decant. Saka that's very important. Then the last fact we are going to look at, tichaita water treatment when we look at the applications of the separating methods, which is going to be the next tier of our lessons. For now, we are just introducing the separating methods separately, and we have done filtration, we've done magnetism, winnowing, patapa decanting, then we are going to evaporation. Saka patiri panapa manje tiri kuti what if the substances are minute? And so let me write this and explain it. So if the substances in a liquid are too minute, saka iri whether is minute roreva kuti minute, anditi kuti minute zvoreva kuti very small. Saka in brackets kutaura pamusoro pema minute impurities like mumvura ye kanzuru. Saka vazhinji vasingaimwe because they suspect, and justifiably so, that there are minute impurities there. There is a chemical, alum for example, we are going to talk about it in our next tier of lessons. So a chemical which adheres to the impurities to adhere kunamira kuita chinamira is added to the liquid, making the impurities heavier, kuwedzera uremu andika. Then the process inoitwa kuwater treatment plant. The process is called loading. So chiri kuitika ndechekuti tapiwa mvura nekanzuru anditika, but mvura iyi iri kuita senge iri clear, but isisi tiri kususpecta kuti mune twunhu mumvura iyi, mapaona. Saka we add a certain chemical, alum for example. Tas add a certain chemical iyoyo manje inenge ichinobatanidza, compact and adhere to kubatanidza tuma-impurities tuya tova tava tubhora tu tunobva twasinga toya kunoku, handiti tosinga toya kunoku, then twasinga toenda uko manje chakuchitika nchekuti takushandisa either a separatory funnel kana kuti takushandisa decanting by pouring kuti tibvise mvura tisiye chitunhu. What we are talking about is the reason why musingatenderwi kumwa mvura yemurwizi kunyange irichita senge iri clear inhau yekuti some impurities, some even living organisms, bacteriums and stuff are very minute. They cannot be seen by a naked eye. They need microscopic power and technology to be able to see them. So that's why it's boil water, chichi, and if you boil water, torai mvura murwizi and boil it, you might begin to see some sediments mumvura imomo after boiling. Then you do the process of decanting and the water is more safer to drink than it was before. So this was the lesson on decanting. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to use the comments to ask your questions. If you want extra lessons with us, you can contact us via WhatsApp on the numbers which are going to appear on your screen soon. Thank you and take care.